And now,
it's 10 a.m.
Let's just get down to it.
And it's time for your sports fix.
Strap yourselves in, folks.
From two guys who have covered the teams you're passionate about for years.
We are professionals.
This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson on 97.5 The KSL Sports Zone.
Jake and Ben, 97.5 The KSL Sports Zone. Now I can't hear this song ever without thinking, play Tipsy again! Which I actually think is cool.
Yeah, it was great.
That, like, you're at the moment kind of a one-hit wonder.
Mm-hmm.
Spin that hit.
Yeah.
What do you expect? Yeah, I mean, he's not the Stones. He can't go deep into the catalog. You know what I mean? He's got to put together a show. Play it again.
Yeah, play it 3 or 4 times. We're talking about Shabuzi playing this song at the opening night for the Utah Hockey Club, where he was some of the opening night entertainment outside Delta Center, and played this song. I mean, he would go into it and get out of it, and then go back into it, and it actually was great.
Now, I hope the dude produces hit after hit after hit, but, like, look, if you're going to go see Carly Rae Jepsen play,
yeah,
I want that Call Me Maybe,
Call Me Maybe
6 times.
Right. Yeah, I'm with you.
That's
why I'm here.
That's why I'm here.
Yeah.
All right. Well, anyway, now that song is associated with that for me. How are you, Ben? What's going on?
Doing well. You?
I'm right now. I'm super jealous of your NBA pullover long sleeve.
You cold?
Yeah, Ben. Show the camera. Okay, so for people who don't know, I guess the NBA forces players to wear NBA stuff, like specifically socks, but they've gotten into other apparel,
some other gear.
And it's kind of legislated in the CBA. Like, if you're going to make us wear your socks, they better be the best dang socks on the planet.
Should be good.
And they are. It's been a while now, but I've had a pair of NBA socks, and they are absolute magic. It's amazing. I never knew a sock could be so good. But I've also gotten what Ben's wearing, the NBA, the pullover hoodie, but I have a G League one.
Okay.
And it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's like an amazing garment. So the NBA has kind of gotten into the clothing industry in a weird exclusive way because you can't buy it anywhere. You have to basically be, I don't know, if you're on the outside looking in like us, like gifted it.
Mm-hmm.
It's incredible, and I'm super jealous that you're wearing one today.
It is comfortable.
Yeah.
It's a good 70 degrees, but overcast. And
it's long sleeve.
Yeah.
It's like an amazing weight. You can wear it all the time. You can wear it in the summer. You can wear it in the winter. It's amazing. I'm jealous.
Well, I'm happy to have it on. And thank you for the kind words.
To anybody out there who has access to this material and might be listening,
hit up your old boy, Jake.
My birthday's in June. All right, Ben. Where do you want to start today? You want to start with Dragon Quin Snyder, or you want to start with Alex Jensen being on the old Hans Scotty show yesterday?
We can probably go with Alex Jensen. I mean, I think that was interesting. I think for him to come on was a big deal, and obviously always nice to have a head coach on the station. But I thought he tempered expectations in a kind of interesting way.
Okay, so let's play this clip because it's kind of the main one, and we're going to include the question, so we don't need a ton of setup here. But I am curious for your reaction, and I would recommend that everybody go listen to the entire interview wherever you get your podcast there with Hans Scotty. Let's go ahead and play the clip there, Car Crash Christian.
When you look back in your era and those years and the success, I mean, I got to imagine, I don't want to say pressure the right word, but almost feel like an obligation to return Utah to what you experienced as a player up on the hill and in that Huntsman Center.
Yeah, that's part of it. It's hard because I don't think that the success that Coach Majerus had over the time he was here, I don't think that could probably ever be repeated. It's a different landscape. You don't get most guys for 2, 3, 4 years, but it's definitely it's what a lot of people remember. But I'm trying not to pressure myself into competing with that, if that makes sense, because that was like, if you look back over the the decade that he had, it's hard to, especially in the Big 12, but I don't think it'll ever be repeated. So I'm not too worried about matching that. I've already accepted defeat on that one.
Yeah, it's
not that we won't try. Not that we won't try. I'm not saying it won't be good, but it's hard.
Can we recap really quickly what Rick Majerus actually did during the 90s?
Please.
He gets the job in 1990. He gets hired. He replaces, he was kind of the interim after Joe Cravens, who was the interim, I think, after Lynn Archibald, or I don't know the whole story. Somebody could help me there. His first season at Utah, 1990, 1991, they go from 16-14 to 30-4 overnight. They're a AP. Their highest ranking was the 8th. They ended up as a 4 seed in the tournament. They missed the tournament his second year, but they were a top 10 team again at one point. Second year there, I guess third year now there, they end up as an 8 seed in the tournament, ranked as high as top 10, number 9 overall. Missed the tournament his 4th year, and then his 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th year, they all make the tournament. 4 of those 6 years, they were ranked in the top 7 of the AP Top 25. They miss it in 2000, and that's when Dick Hunsaker took over for a little bit. And then they come back, and he has 2 more teams that go to the tournament in his last 2 years. But in total, he missed the tournament twice when he was the full-time head coach over 12 years.
Yeah.
And was a top 25 team every single year minus 2. And several of those he was top 10.
Well, and I mean, we can go through the characters that he coached too. I mean, the year he missed, I believe, was when he was in between Josh Grant and Jimmy Soto and the next era, think Cano and Andre Miller and all of that. And then they were off to the races. And then he actually continued it somewhat after the finals run, right? With Mark Jackson. Who did they beat in the tournament? They beat somebody good, like Oregon. I want to say Luke Rittenauer. Does that sound right?
Possibly.
It's like a double overtime game or something crazy. So that guy went to Olympus. I never liked him.
Luke Rittenauer?
No, Mark Jackson.
Oh, I was going to say, I didn't know Luke went to high school here.
I'm just kidding.
The Seattle kid through and through.
Okay, so I'm glad we went through that to get perspective. So your takeaway from the quote then is?
I wonder if people actually know what Alex is saying we're not going to reach. Which, yeah, I agree. You're not going to get to that point. You're not going to be a top 10 team perennially in college basketball.
Probably not.
The way Rick Majerus truly had turned Utah into a near blue blood basketball school.
Okay.
So I want to, for myself, I'm not trying to explain to anyone else. I wanted to understand what Alex was not going to measure himself up against. And I think that's A, good, looking at what happened in the 90s at Utah, and B, in all honesty, that would be my strategy every single year. Because you and I have talked about Jeff Hornacek taking a Phoenix Suns job, going, I think, 42-40 his first year when they were a terrible team, and his second year they actually adjusted and played to the quality of the roster, and he got fired.
Right.
Because he's unfairly set expectations on himself by doing a good job early. And I don't know if you should ever promise that you're going to do a good job. In any business, at any point in your life, you should undersell and overachieve, overdeliver. And I think that's probably a little bit of what Alex is doing.
That's all he's doing. I mean, that's exactly what he's doing. I have 2 takes on this. One, that what he's saying is very human and very correct, and you lay out the case well, and nobody needs to remind Ute fans that Rick Majerus was a legend. I mean, it was a long run for a coach in college sports, and especially considering it was a WAC / Mountain West league at the time, program. Yeah, it's remarkable, and you can go back through it. And it is not fair to measure Alex Jensen against Rick Majerus. It's not fair to measure Ray Giacoletti against Rick Majerus, or Jim Boylan, or Larry Kraskowiak. And those 3 did nice things at times. Not really Boylan, but
yeah,
he was like the 5th seed in the tourney one year with Luke Neville. But anyway, but the truth is, Ben, nobody wants to hear that. You know what I mean?
Yes, I do.
Like, And this is the part of the job I don't think that is going to be Alex's strength. He's not a PR guy. He's not rah-rah.
He's not rah-rah.
He's
all.
more of an introvert. I mean, I learned a long time ago, you can't really hold it against people for not being great public speakers. That is a skill in and of itself. And very smart people who are capable of doing way more things
Yes.
than great public speakers, or some great. Certainly, I wouldn't consider myself a great public speaker, I guess, but somebody who speaks regularly in public, right? Mm-hmm. And so you can't hold it against, like, just because you can't do a great interview doesn't mean you're not a great athlete.
Right, absolutely. Right.
And you can't, because he's not electric on the radio, you can't really hold it against him. This was not going to be a strength for him, I don't think.
Nor, on the flip side, is everybody who is good at it necessarily a good coach. I think they're unrelated.
No, but that is part of the job.
Agreed.
The face of a college basketball program is part of the job of the head coach. And we talked about this when, of course, you tried to poo-poo BYU's excitement about A.J. DeBonta.
Yeah.
And say, oh, you can't, don't expect Cooper Flagg. Okay. Cooper had a special season. Yeah, it's probably not fair but that's not what people want to hear right now. The guy's not even on campus. You don't want to hear about the failure and adjust your expectation. Everybody, I bet, listening knows it's not fair to compare anybody to Rick Majerus and his run at Utah.
Yeah.
There are very few college basketball coaches in history that have had that type of run at that type of school. Right. It just doesn't happen that much. And he took a team that had no business going to the finals. Mm-hmm. It was the year after Keith Van Horn left, for crying out loud. So that is absolutely not fair. But that is not what anybody wants to hear from the head coach, during his first radio interview. They want to hear I learned under a great coach, and we're going to hold this program to high standards and try to get it back close to where it was, or do our best, or whatever. And then you can spend the rest of next year, because you're going to have to temper expectations all year, because I don't think he's going to be able to flip it overnight, and it's going to be a thing. I know it's more possible in
it's more possible now than ever. Today's
day and age, but
though Rick Majerus did it in 1990, apparently.
Yeah, so sure, it's possible, but I'm not going to predict that's going to happen.
No, of course not.
So, there's plenty of time to do all that and to be realistic about it. And I think every person listening knows that is true. And I understand why he's saying that. It's a very human take on the whole thing. And I'm sure part of it being compared to Rick Majerus frightens him. It would frighten me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, everyone was afraid of Rick Majerus, especially if you worked for him.
So I'm not going to fault somebody for jumping on the radio and express it, but at the same time, that's not really what people, if you're thinking of it from a PR standpoint, that's not what people want to hear at the moment. And part of this job is going to be rah-rah, because you've got to raise money. You have got to be a fundraiser now. You have to harness the excitement around your hiring and quite literally monetize it. So, but again, I don't want to be critical of somebody for expressing their true feelings, because that is valuable, and I appreciate it as somebody who believes that that's the best kind of radio. But if you're looking at what's smartest for the program, I probably would have come on and said, well, we have to have $10 billion if we're even going to come in the neighborhood of what good old Rick achieved. So here's the number. If you guys could put a QR code on your website, that'd be terrific. And let's get started.
I don't know if I did my impression of Alex Jensen on the air or not, but when his name started to get floated after Craig Smith was let go, I remember doing it, and this is Alex Jensen. That's kind of the feeling you get from Alex Jensen. I have talked to Alex a lot when he was working with the Jazz, when he was and kind of doing the coaching during the summer leagues. You get access to the coaches, you talk to them, you get to interview them a lot. So I've been around Alex. I've run into Alex at the grocery store. That's kind of the feeling he has. It's kind of what you get from him. That's who he is. He's not rah-rah, which is why I did think that the Andre Miller co-hiring made a lot of sense.
He's not rah-rah either.
But he's more willing to talk than Alex is.
Is he?
And he is more outgoing than Alex is in that sense. And has the NBA backing and the experience with the NBA players. Not that Alex doesn't have a lot of experience with NBA players, but being on the court that I do think appeals to young players. And if you don't get it, then you're not going to have a guy who's willing to come out and at least speak a little more lively like that. And you're right.
Like
Andre
that.
Miller is not the most lively person either. So that's not to say it's an untenable situation. What I do think is it means you better be a hell of a coach. You better be able to, if you're not selling either donors or players on the rah-rah aspect of your team, once you get them behind the scenes, you better just coach the heck out of them.
Yeah, you better make up for it somewhere. Yeah,
and by the way,
it's not
you
the
totally
whole pie.
can.
It's not the whole pie, but it is a piece of the pie.
You totally can, because there are a lot of rah-rah coaches. What game did I watch yesterday? That's how bad it is. I watched a college basketball game, whatever it was. I think it was neither here nor there. I'm watching some college basketball guys getting ready for the draft. And the opposing coach is Oklahoma's head coach. That's who I was watching. I have to look up his name. He is so rah-rah. He is so all over the place. I don't know if he can coach a lick. In fact, I think he may have gotten let go this summer. Porter Moser. Is he still there or did he get fired?
I think he's still there.
Okay. He is all over the place.
Uh-huh.
Doesn't mean anything. You know what I mean? He's animated. He's jumping up and down on the sidelines. He's yelling at the referees. Whatever. I think he was a really hot candidate at one point.
It does mean something. Oh, you finish your point. No, but I do think it means something.
But, they have a lottery pick on their team. They have talent around them. They did make the tournament.
Yeah.
But, they're not a real threat to do anything. You know what I mean? They were a decent team in a probably very bloated SEC this year that rode the coattails of the reputation of the league to the tournament. And you know what the nice thing is? You actually do have the advantage of doing that in the Big 12 as well.
Here's what I mean by it does mean something. Ben, what's the greatest team on the planet? Well, the United States military, of course. And I think military and sports comparisons are sometimes awkward, but in this case, we're talking about team building and getting the most out of somebody from in a physically demanding moment, right? And the military is able to get everybody on the same page through a variety of techniques, mainly, well, you have to do it. Uh-huh. And then you do it and you figure it out. And all of a sudden you're this highly functional team. In sports, obviously, it's very different because you don't have that kind of authority, especially anymore. So how do you identify with young people and get them to function as a team is a critical component.
It is.
It is a critical component. And what do you do? And if you have to be like Eric Musselman and take your shirt off to celebrate after, I guess that's what you've got to do. There's more than one way to do it. But if some guys take the rah and I'm going to inspire you and do all this sort of thing and it works, well, then go for it. You don't have to do it that way, but that's the function. He'll have to figure out a way to get a bunch of, how did Chris Peterson put it? A bunch of America's dumbest demographic to all be on the same page and to play their role as a team. And every coach has to figure out how to do it. And Alex doesn't have to rah-rah it, but how do you identify with those young people? How do you get on the same page with them so that they listen and that you can, it's the reason that cliche lost the locker room is such a big deal to people, I think it gets waved around a little often. But if Mike Malone was unable to communicate with his players to get them to function as a team, he can't coach. You can't be the coach anymore. So how do you identify and communicate with young people? And he'll have to figure out his way because I doubt he knows it.
I bet he does know it. And I think one of the things that we don't give credit enough for coaches is authenticity. And authenticity works. And I think through and through, from the hundreds of coaches I have talked to in my life, authenticity seems to work the best, most consistently. I think what Kalani Sitake does at BYU is authentic. I think what Witt does at Utah is authentic. Now, Witt has evolved and changed and added things and dropped things, but I think it all comes from a true place of who he is as a person. The same thing with Mike Leach, who's different than anyone else I've ever talked to, but it was extremely authentic.
But they all have their gimmicks. I could list them all out to you. I mean, the strength of the team,
Sure,
or all in or in the way, or they all have their gimmicks to identify with young people. That's what I'm telling you. It can all be different. And I agree with your authenticity point, but it's not like you can't be your authentic self with everybody. Everybody has their thing. All of those coaches had their thing. Even Jerry Sloan's lunch pail stuff.
Sure.
That was the thing. There was all the same stuff.
Yeah.
And Jerry was a pretty authentic guy, but he said the same thing over and over and over and over and over again because that was his way of communicating with his players.
He found out what worked.
Like, I'm going to super dumb everything down, and I'm going to say it, and I mean that in a really nice way. I'm going to make everything really simple, and I'm going to repeat it over and over again. And, what's that famous anecdote about Jerry? I think Britton or somebody told to me an opposing player poked his head in the huddle in like a joking matter during a timeout, and Jerry goes, "You know what's coming anyway.
Yeah.
Now why don't you stop it?" That was like his way of. That's how he coached. That's how he identified. So how is, Phil Jackson picked his Zen crap. I mean, there's a million ways to do it, but rah-rahing works these days.
It is one of the ways that works. It's just not the only way that works.
No,
so
it's
I wouldn't
not.
be concerned by Alex not having that on the radio.
But what's he going to do? Because in the NBA, I mean, especially as an assistant, you get to coach with that almost more authoritative, this is your job. You're a professional. You're here. You have to listen to what I have to say. In college, it's different. How do you, again, America's dumbest demographic. Could you identify with an 18-year-old and communicate authentically with them, Ben?
No, of course not.
I couldn't.
No.
Now, Christian is 18, so I guess we communicate with him on a daily basis.
But, Alex has been working with 19-year-olds, a bunch of 19-year-olds, and has identified with them in the NBA. And I get you're right. There's a different level of expectation. It's your job here. There's no limitations on basically how often we can work with you and what the expectations are. But he got to this point not accidentally. And he's been hired around a lot of times. He didn't stick through. Did he start with Tyrone Corbin? Did he start with?
Yeah.
Start with Ty, get hired by Quin, get retained by Will, get hired by Jason Kidd because he's bad at it.
No, I agree. By the way, Christian is older than 18.
19.
I should say that. And I know we're way over Christian, but do you have this do you interact with a lot of babysitters?
No.
I do a fair amount, and I'm not speaking the same language as them.
Yeah.
Like, not even close. I think they roll their eyes at every single sentence. I say hello, and they're like, oh.
But I have a 12-year-old, so yeah, I'm getting there.
Yeah, I'm sure you are.
Yeah.
All right, stay tuned. We'll have top 3 stories of the day at KSLSports.com coming up next. Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
The Utah Jazz select.
Do you believe in karma? Well, we here at the KSL Sports Zone absolutely believe in creating good vibes for the Utah Jazz in their hopes of securing the #1 pick in the NBA Draft Lottery. Go to KSLSports.com to donate $2 to Intermountain Primary Children's Hospital.
Wait, why $2? And isn't that the jersey number of...
Bob, it's just a random number, okay? Just stick to the copy.
It's a real 2-for-1. Your donation will help Intermountain Primary Children's Hospital and help the Utah Jazz capture the Good Karma flag in their hopes of recouping winning basketball in Utah.
Fingers crossed, guys.
Donate your $2 right now at KSLSports.com.
Who's got it better than us? Nobody!
Your home for the best sports coverage in Utah. You're listening to Jake Scott and Ben Anderson on 97.5 The KSL Sports Zone.
Jake and Ben, 97.5 The KSL Sports Zone. Are you Hindu like Ben and believe in karma? You're not Hindu.
Don't talk about my religion on the air.
Do you believe in karma? Log on to KSLSports.com to help raise money for a great cause and create good vibes for the Jazz going into the draft lottery. I love this promotion. It's a great idea. It's the KSL Sports 2-for-1. Donate at least $2 to Intermountain Primary Children's Hospital in hopes the Jazz recouping winning basketball here in Utah. Go to KSLSports.com and donate your $2 today. So generate some goodwill and then make it happen for primary children's, which is amazing to have here in our community.
Very cool.
By the way.
Yeah.
Like all over the Intermountain West, kids come to primary children. So lucky to have that. So great cause and create good vibes for the Jazz. All right. Time for the top 3 stories of the day. KSLSports.com. Sponsored by J. Brooks Jewelers. Cherish your love with J. Brooks Jewelers. Explore their expertly crafted engagement rings made from the finest materials. J. Brooks Jewelers. All right, Christian, where are we starting today?
Number 1, that's it. It's all done. The first season of NHL hockey is over in Utah.
And I think most would consider it a resounding success, Ben.
I agree. I thought it might get a little bit more of a stranglehold, especially with the Jazz having such a down year. I'm not sure it quite got there, but again, it ended up with a different audience than I expected. It ended up with an audience that had almost no crossover. Yeah, the Android crowd. That had no crossover with the Apple crowd that's the Utah Jazz.
I still find that offensive, but
that's fine. It doesn't matter. But it's 2 totally separate things. I thought that they would steal some of the Jazz's thunder this year. They didn't. I don't think that was the case in the slightest because I think it was different people rooting for the team, which, in all honesty, is probably better than having them compete against each other.
Fact. That's what Ryan Smith and everybody over there told us when they started selling season tickets, right? Is that the overlap was not huge. And I actually think that's really...
the teens or lower.
I think that's actually really important because you don't want one to take a bite out of the other. That was always the fear for a long time. Right, look into the competition between Larry Miller and Dave Checkett. It was, worried that the sports landscape couldn't support, at the time, RSL and the Jazz. And the truth is that 1,000% it can, and one didn't take a bite out of the other. And so you didn't want to see hockey come in and somehow weaken the Jazz, and they were telling us all along that's not the case. And I would believe that too, Ben. I mean, I'm in the arena for both. Mm-hmm. Crowds, and I'm not going to come up with some offensive thing like Android and Apple, but it seems like a different crowd.
It's definitely a different crowd, and a strength. They finished the year 38, 31, and 13. I honestly don't know how big of a factor this is, other than it's pretty resoundingly obvious if you look at all the teams that are either wild card or missed the playoffs, so weren't top 6 in the Western Conference or weren't top 6 in the East. Basically, everybody has a negative goal differential. How many you scored, how many you gave up. St. Louis, who's been on an absolute tear and just smoked the hockey club last night, was it 6-1 was the final, is plus 21. They're the only team that has to go through the wild card to make the playoffs that had a positive goal differential. Utah is actually number 2 in the entire conference, even better than Minnesota, who is going to make the wild card. They're minus 11. Utah Hockey Club finishes only minus 10. So I think what that tells me is you got to win some more of these close games, and they didn't find a way to do that, especially a lot of these overtime games, because an overtime game can only get decided by 1 goal. So you've got to figure out a way to do that, and that might just be experience. That might be adding another proven goal scorer, but they're certainly close. They feel very close to making a breakthrough. And I would expect them, assuming health next year, to be very competitive. But I thought a great first season.
What's next?
Number 2, Quin Snyder and the Hawks, they blow it in the play-in. Trae Young getting ejected.
Intentionally, it would seem.
Yeah, he gave up late. They were down huge in the first half, got it back to, 3 points? I mean, they got it really close and then fell apart over the last couple of minutes. So it was not a super competitive game. Most play-in tournament games historically haven't been awesome. I did think the late game last night was very good between the Memphis Grizzlies and the Golden State Warriors.
And we can get to that.
Credit Memphis for playing better. But yeah, Atlanta no-showed. They do still have a chance. They will host the winner of Chicago and Miami tonight, coming up in 2 days.
You know why Trae Young would be hard to be teammates with? Like, when you play like that, if you get drubbed, it's because of you. Mm-hmm. And he was terrible.
Yeah.
And they lost like that, because of him.
Yeah.
Like that?
How dare you get ejected and leave us with this mess?
Yeah, right.
You're going to get ejected and intentionally walk away? You?
Yeah.
You just got us drubbed by the hapless Magic.
Yeah.
And now you're checking out?
Right. there are some leadership things that you can't ever do. He was minus 22 in the game. He did have 28 points and 6 assists. He had an okay shooting night, 8 of 21.
That is not okay. That's terrible.
He went 11 of 12 from the free throw line. So ultimately, 28 points on 21 shots is not horrendous, but he's got to be a leader. And especially as a point guard, you've got to be a leader. And he certainly did not do that last night. And it's why, we might talk about it next, there's always been trade rumors around Trae Young his entire career.
Well, I can't imagine why anybody would want him. You know what? He's the guy that breaks wind on the elevator and then gets off on the next floor.
Sure. Yeah, sure. He leaves you with a mess. Miami, Chicago tonight, 5:30 on ESPN, and then Dallas, Sacramento, the late game.
Real quick on the Warriors and the Grizzlies, Ben. Our buddy Tim Lacombe is thinking Warriors is like a sleeper in the playoffs. Any thoughts on that?
I think I'm going to pick Houston to beat them.
Do you?
Yeah.
Man, it's going to be interesting. I mean, Jimmy Butler had 38.
And Steph had 37. And had Memphis been able to inbound the ball without a 5-second violation on the last possession, it might have gone to overtime.
Yeah.
So, and every team is different. I get it. But, yeah, they're going to be susceptible to lose this series. And Houston's going to be at home. And I get that we've never seen Houston do it before because this is a brand-new roster, and we've seen the Warriors do it, so there's some proof of concept there. Houston's been the second-best team in the West, which is a juggernaut conference. They've been the second-best team for a long time. And they closed the season extraordinarily well. So, and they have proof that they can beat the Warriors, including the last time they matched up in a game that the Warriors absolutely had to win, and Houston just housed them. So I think I'm going to take Houston in this series.
I'm cheering for him. I love Houston's story, for sure.
And then I think Houston, if they lose, well, here's my take. Whoever loses of this series, Golden State, Houston, is going to make an aggressive push for another All-Star this summer.
All right, what's next?
Number 3, speaking of potential trades this summer, there are rumors that the Pelicans ownership could force new president Joe Dumars to trade Zion should the Jazz get involved.
The nice thing about Zion is if you want to tank again next year, you can do it with Zion.
Well, yeah, I mean, you just sit him out.
Yeah, they've got, I think, the 4th worst record in the NBA right now. It's like he never plays. When he plays, he's awesome. He never plays.
I think this is a deeper discussion, but actually, let's talk about the Jazz component a little later on in the show. We can do that. We've got Nick at top of the 11 o'clock hour. Maybe we get this toward the end at 11:50, whether or not the Jazz should do it. But my question for you is, what kind of market do you think there would be?
For Zion?
Yep.
He's got a great contract. He gets paid a ton. Every year is non-guaranteed. Because he signed it when he was hurt. So the idea is whenever he's hurt, you can just waive him. If you decide, he's checked out, you're not on the hook for him. So in that sense, there's some real value there. But yeah, we can talk about that more coming up.
But like what real value? What do you think? 2 firsts? Do you think another All-Star? Is this
to give up to get him?
Yeah. What's the market going to be?
There will be teams that make a real push for him. So yeah, you would have to do some bidding. I don't think you're getting him for John Collins, Jordan Clarkson.
No. I don't think so either.
The next Minnesota Timberwolves pick. I think you probably have to give up a little bit more than that. But then again,
we're not talking like a Mikal Bridges 6 picks.
No, not at all.
I don't think so either.
No. You're talking about expiring contracts.
Because
for a couple of guys that might make it on their roster and might stick, and John Collins is playing very well.
Because that's the answer to the whole discussion. Because he's a risk.
Mm-hmm.
On and off the floor, by the way. You see some ex or former is like stalking him and like threatened his current love interest. Or it's a lot of noise.
He's very noisy.
And it's a huge risk.
Mm-hmm.
So how much is that going to cost you? That's the entire equation.
Mm-hmm.
If you want me to take a risk, Ben, it better cost me nothing, and the upside better be extremely high.
But you know who operates that way?
Danny Ainge. And that could be the case. That's why I'm saying. That's why I think this is actually a really more interesting conversation than a lot of people think.
That has never bothered Danny Ainge.
No.
Ever.
All right, stay tuned. Nick Olchek's going to be with us at the top of the 11 o'clock hour. It's Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
This is DJ and PK.
We listened to the press conferences for Will Hardy and Justin Zanuck. They ran through their assessments of players.
I thought they downplayed Cody Williams' disappointing season a little bit. It was so disappointing that I don't think they wanted to bury him. And I like what Hardy did with all the other guys, and he talked about Kessler, that there's still more to go, and he meant that from the positive. That's what's exciting. The season sucked, but it was supposed to suck. But there's enough tantalizing intrigue with several of these guys to say, hey, maybe we have something here. Let's see what we got, combined with the players that they pick up in the draft and anybody they may sign over the summer. So it's down right now. They had the worst record in the league, obviously, for the first time ever, but I don't think it's entirely bleak.
Catch DJ and PK mornings from 6 to 10 on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Who's got it better than us?
Your home for the best sports coverage in Utah. You're listening to Jake Scott and Ben Anderson on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Ben, it's Wednesday on the Jake and Ben show. That means it's Win Ticket Wednesday on all the shows. Caller number 12 right now, 801-575-ZONE. We're going to give you 2 tickets. You're going to go see Cyndi Lauper, the final leg of the Girls Just Want to Have Fun tour, August 14th at Utah First Credit Union Amphitheater. Tickets are on sale now at livenation.com. We're going to talk to Nick Olczyk coming up at the top of the 11 o'clock hour. Stay tuned for that. We were just talking off the air. Utah Hockey Club going to do some sort of media event for the end of the season coming up tomorrow. So we'll hear from everybody involved.
I think avoiding disaster, as low of a bar as that may seem, was a real positive this year for the Utah Hockey Club. You didn't have any controversies. You didn't have any arena failures. You didn't have ice problems. You didn't have broadcast issues. You didn't, all the infrastructure that had to be there worked well, in my opinion. I didn't see it. I haven't heard any drama behind the scenes. And you hear that stuff in the media. If it's happening, you get to hear it. But I didn't hear any of that. The players were happy here. The players thrived here. Everything went in order. There were players who had seasons that were worse than expected. Matias Michelli, I think, had been better in Arizona and didn't play well this year. And Lawson Krause had a really slow start to the season, but seemed to figure it out late in the year. But Clayton Keller had the best year of his career. He earned the C on his chest. I thought he played very well. The 2 young guys who you're extremely heavily invested in, including signing Dylan Gunther to a 7-year extension, was awesome. Cooley's going to sign, I would imagine, pretty soon. And that's the big story. And those are what you needed to have hit, and they have hit so far.
I'm sorry, Ben. I'm incredibly distracted by this video.
Oh, okay. What are you watching?
Let me just read this. A brawl broke out at Two Eagles Golf Course in British Columbia during a Monday Night League. Witnesses say slow play was the cause of the altercation, with one man suffering a broken jaw, and the police had to be involved.
Okay.
And Ben, one guy gets his shirt pulled off. You should see this thing.
A real brawl.
I don't know if you could call a bunch of fat guys fighting a real brawl, but it's unbelievable. But I apologize, and I think your analysis of the situation with the hockey club was excellent. But Ben, slow play. Listen, you good golfers out there need to be a little more patient, and you slow golfers out there need to be more self-aware. There's a happy middle here.
Yeah.
You slower golfers need to play different courses, but you faster golfers need to settle down.
Chill a little.
Settle down.
Yeah. You and I played. We've had people nipping at our heels. We've also had people who were like, all right, this is the 10th practice swing for a ball that's going 9 feet. Because that's how I play golf. And so I don't take that many practice swings.
And then you go and look for balls.
Yeah.
Yep. We all can come together on the golf course and play peacefully. Be self-aware. Yeah. Be patient.
Have a little sense.
All right. And certainly don't break somebody's jaw.
No, that's always scary.
All right. Stay tuned. Nick Olczyk. We'll talk more hockey with him coming up next. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.